Hey everyone, Sean Finnegan here with IGN, and I'm joined today by Frank Knight.
Thanks for having me.
We are talking about the Power Rangers short film that was directed by Joseph Kahn, who you may know from Torque and Detention, which were some films that came out back in the day. Torque was like Fast and the Furious for motorcycles. And produced by Adi Shankar, who you may know from the gritty, violent reboots of The Punisher, Dirty Laundry, and Venom, but you probably know better from The Grey with Liam Neeson and Dread with Carl Urban. Frank, let's jump right into this. We're already like in the midst of a really cool, awesome action scene where we're seeing the Power Rangers for the first time. Tell me a little bit about what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so right now we're seeing this great battle with, in the background we have these Megazords from Power Rangers, the kind of giant robots, the mechs that you're traditionally associate with Power Rangers. And we have our Black Ranger shooting like a fully automatic rifle, and we have our Green Ranger, who is kind of special.
And obviously, if you are familiar with the show, you remember that the Green Ranger has these really kind of iconic shield shoulder blade type things that protect his chest and shoulders.
Yeah, that big golden thing that he would wear over everything.
Right, but here it's done a little bit differently. In the show, it's very much part of the costume in that it's something crafted in a prop. But here it's definitely CGI, maybe even 3D model. It's very distinctive.
Yeah, no, it's very unique, and it's really a way of kind of updating that traditional costume to something a little more modern.
Right.
And speaking of updating the costumes, right here we're going to see another little update. We have
our first shot of the helmets.
Yeah, these are really kind of reminiscent of the iconic Mighty Morphin Power Ranger helmets. We have our gray mouth guard like we did in the original series, but the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger helmets all had quote-unquote dinosaur themes. You know, we had our T-Rex themed helmet and our Triceratops themed helmet, but now we have more. We have some symbolism that kind of suggests it, like the crest on her forehead kind of looks like wings for her pterodactyl, but they're not in any way, shape, or form close enough to the original helmets to be infringing on anyone's IP.
Right, which again kind of ties back to the whole origin of this Power Rangers piece, which is that it was done very much without the license from the companies involved, like
Saban.
Right.
Power Rangers was originally created by Saban, then it switched to Disney, now it's back to Saban.
And they are notoriously aggressive with how that IP is protected in relation to blood and violence. So this is something that director Joseph Kahn, in a really interesting article, talks a little bit about, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Let's talk about what's coming up right here, which is our first sort of interrogation scene.
Yeah, so we established that we have like a dark, gritty universe, and then we meet our protagonists, maybe? I don't know. Our main characters, at the very least. We have everybody's favorite Dawson from Dawson's Creek. We have James Van Der Beek, and he plays Rocky, who was the second Red Ranger in Power Rangers, and he's doing a little interrogation on Katee Sackhoff, Starbuck.
Right. Who you may know from, Starbuck and Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah,
and more recently,
the Woman ones and all kinds of different things.
Yeah, and more recently, the Third Chronicle of Riddick.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which I don't know what it's called. I think it's just called Riddick.
Yeah, the Third Chronicle of Riddick is just Riddick.
Yeah.
And she plays Kimberly, the original Pink Ranger.
Right. So this is a really cool scene because this, more than like the action scenes, also really establishes this really dark tone. Like, we get a shot really quickly here of the Red Ranger's leg being totally cyborg.
Yeah, he has like a robot leg. You know, he's all scarred up. He has a missing leg. Clearly, whatever war with the Machine Empire that these guys have gone through has really taken their toll on our Rangers and kind of hearted them, and you know, they've lost limbs, and they're all kind of dark and gritty versions of what they used to be.
Right. And in the opening of the scene, you saw that she is handcuffed to the chair, so it also alludes to the fact that there's probably this big falling out, something that happened post-apocalypse that kind of has divided our Rangers and set them on totally different paths. We
have Rocky kind of, I guess, from her perspective, betraying the Rangers. He's now working for the Machine Empire, and he's interrogating her, trying to get information about our Power Rangers. And if you look really carefully right here, he's actually Minority Report style swiping through images. And at this point, you know, when you're first watching it, you don't know who these are. But after you've seen it, you realize that these are actually the Power Rangers. That was our Zach, and here is our Trina. This is our Yellow Ranger, and he's kind of going through them.
Which is really cool. Again, I want to point out just the level of production quality that goes into a short like this. It's called a fan film or a bootleg by the producer. And it's really a step above that. These guys work in Hollywood, and you can kind of just get that sense by watching this. The lighting is beautiful, so is the color, and the animation for all the stuff that's happening on the screens, like you pointed out, it's very Minority Report. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, it's very wonderful. And then speaking of there, we have this wonderful thing right here.
Yeah, talking about production quality, this match cut to go from scene into flashback is really just straight out of a music video, which, like I pointed out in the beginning, Joseph Kahn is known for doing lots of high-quality music videos. He's done Taylor Swift's stuff and things like that. Here we get our first look at what we're calling the bride scene. And who is this that she's in the car with here?
So this is, according to the narrative, this is Jason, the first ever Red Ranger. They were apparently married for about 8 hours, and then some cops or the Machine Empire or something comes at him. He reaches for a sword and gets gunned down. In our first actual really showing of how bloody and violent this movie is going to be.
Right, and she hops out of the car here, and we get our first look at two what I would call beloved characters from the original
the infamous
series. Who
Bulk
are these guys? Yeah.
And Skull. This is Bulk right here, and this is Skull right here. And then we see her calling their names out. But, yeah, they were the bullies that, made fun of our heroes in high school, and now they're selling them out to the Machine Empire. They're getting them all gunned down. And actually right here, we see that they've now OD'd. So they turned on our heroes and then did a lot of meth and now are OD'd.
And we're also seeing in these sort of retrospective flashbacks the Green Ranger as Rocky, the Red Ranger, is implying him to have caused these murders.
Yeah.
Which is the kind of the narrative through line of the interrogation scene.
Yeah, absolutely. We see him kind of just appearing at different places. He's not necessarily interacting. And then we have our next scene, which is kind of a crazy
our first
scene.
Look.
Yeah, this is our. So this is the safe for work version of the video that we're showing you right now. There's an NSFW version that you've seen that has this shot is slightly different, correct?
Right. So as you pointed out, there are two versions: a not safe for work version, which originally made the rounds on Vimeo, but has since been taken down, at least of the time of recording this, and a safe for work version, which is the one we're scrubbing through. In this shot, both girls are totally nude, and they're actually both played by porn stars who are credited in the credits, so you can look up. But that's the main difference here, in addition to some extra blood and gore effects.
Yeah, and my friends over at Henshin Justice let me know that these two girls, since they were we figured out that they were porn stars. We figured out their names. We were able to find them in the credits. Are actually playing the characters of Divatox and Scorpina, who were villains from the original Power Rangers. Divatox was the villain with the submarine from Turbo, a Power Ranger movie, and Scorpina was like Goldar's lady friend from the original Power Rangers.
Very cool. So even minor shots like this, which are ostensibly in there just to kind of excite and entice people, actually have some basis in the narrative, which is very cool.
Yep.
Here we're getting our first look at, I guess, what is the only part of this whole thing that isn't entirely dark, gritty, and violent, which is the hip-hop keto.
Yeah, this is their very lighthearted thing. In the original Power Rangers TV show, Zach always said like his martial arts was like hip-hop keto. He's kind of like a capoeira, like breakdance fighter kind of character. And it's really nice to see that kind of reference be brought into this.
Right, and the reference being that now, after the war and after all this stuff has kind of messed up the Power Rangers, he's now doing workout videos.
Yeah, he's the Power Rangers equivalent of Billy Blanks, right?
Exactly. The narrative leads us to believe, or sets up this next great scene with the Black Ranger, which in my mind is probably the coolest part of this short film, which we're going to kind of let play in its entirety here. This is just going back to like, these are the types of scenes that really separate what we traditionally call fan films from, I don't know what you'd call this, but it's not really a fan film. The production quality is so high on these. Like, we're looking at these subtitles here, and this is just a really interesting way to do this, right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love how the subtitles are actually played out in this. And it's not normal. Usually, you have horrible little yellow text, like in the black bars or something like that, and this is really engaging and makes you want to read it because they have so much emotion to them.
Yeah, it's definitely more integrated with the shots. Sometimes you have a little bit of a divide between like what's happening as part of the image and what you have to read to contextualize that, but here it's really done together and as one piece really well. And that again just emphasizes the fact that these guys who made this film are they're not amateurs by any perspective, or in any perspective. Yeah. The fight scene starts here. We already see him using his helmet to great effect. What do we think about the costumes here? You mentioned a little bit that like the original Power Rangers costumes are ostensibly just a motorcycle helmet and spandex, yet here they're a little bit thicker and they're a little bit more padded and sort of armored.
Yeah, we have kind of like a rubber latex suit going on here to give them more of a shape, more things. It's definitely one way of going about making it all kind of darker. All that you see his helmet ricocheting bullets back at people. It's a much more violent aesthetic than we're used to with Power Rangers. But also the unfortunate thing is because it's a bigger, thicker thing, it seems to actually be hindering the choreography because like, it's kind of a larger suit. It's kind of like if you watch those old Ninja Turtle movies, doing a backflip in a turtle costume is pretty hard.
Absolutely, and that would be the one thing that I would want to point out about the choreography is while it's great, you can tell that it was shot a little bit faster. Like there's a shot coming up here that is definitely sped up that you can see, and it's just it kind of emphasizes the fact like right there that's sped up. It just kind of shows that while these guys are pros, they were working on a little bit of a budget, and this was not an endorsed thing from Saban, and they're working within their limitations, but it's still great, and I think that's the violence and kind of the narrative really makes up for it.
Absolutely.
Moving on, we're going to pass by the fight sequence and kind of go into the setup for what is our introduction to the Blue Ranger.
Yeah, so we're going to mention all of our different Power Rangers.
Wait, let's pause.
Oh, you want to talk about the absolutely adorable scene right here?
Absolutely. So again, part of what's really cool about this is kind of how that interrogation scene sets up the character relationships. You want to talk about what separates amateur from professional work. It's shots like this, embracing your wides, just as a cinematographer. Shots like this really kind of contextualize how these characters work together, and that just sets up what happens the rest of the narrative.
Wide really kind of says like, we're not shooting this in our backyard. Like we're on a location. We have wonderful perspective, and we're in a universe
and a great frame too.
Yep.
The Green Ranger and the Pink Ranger there, obviously.
So now we're coming to a little bit where we're establishing some stuff, and we see little machines, and we see a figure picking up a bullet. And
if you pause right at the right spot,
if you get right at the right spot, it's really hard to catch, but you can actually see if you look really close. It says Cranston Blade Inc. And that's a reference to Billy Cranston, the Blue Ranger from the original series, and the Power Ranger gun was the Power Blade or the Power Gun, whatever you want to call it, is what's being referenced there. He's now turned apparently in the storyline like a trillionaire by selling the weapon that the Power Rangers had to the mass market, and he's so famous that he gets on covers like this one right here of Out magazine with Adi Shankar. This is our producer.
This is the very small cameo from the producer who is responsible for making this thing happen, and here he is. This is also, as you pointed out, a little bit of a call out to the original actor who played the Blue Ranger, David Yost.
Yeah, so the character was never gay or straight. It was a kid's cartoon, but the actor has since come out as being gay. So like this is a wonderful little call out to real life being integrated into this wonderful fan film.
And there's a couple of those that we'll talk about when we get there, but that's another nice thing that the filmmakers did was contextualize this in terms of how we understand the Power Rangers as a show, but also as kind of a cultural phenomenon, which is cool.
Absolutely.
And this is the only time we actually see this character on screen. He's already dead.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of cool. Moving on, like the scene after this, again, these interrogation scenes set up the scenes that follow, which is really cool. And we move on. Actually, I want to back up here. This part where James Van Der Beek approaches Katee Sackhoff and puts his hands on her legs is a very creepy moment, and it's just really cool to kind of see filmmakers commit to a tone that most definitely would not exist if this were to actually be a feature film.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know for sure that the people who own Power Rangers would never want something like this to happen, and it's just kind of cool to see that type of thing happen. Not because it's cool, but just committing to that style.
Yeah, exactly. It's what they're able to do because it's an unsanctioned thing. And this is the next thing. This is super sad, but as we said, the previous scene with Billy's character references his reality, and this is our Yellow Ranger, Trini, but they're actually all at her funeral, which is super sad because as Power Ranger fans know, the actress who played Trini died in a car accident, and all of the Power Rangers actually went to her funeral in real life. So it's a super sad, but it's a reference to reality outside of the fictional environment.
How we as fans kind of come to understand Power Rangers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Also really cool about the scene is just what Katee Sackhoff's character is wearing here. It seems a little out of the ordinary, but is definitely very cool and kind of villainous.
Yeah, no, it's this really, she has this really angry look on her face with this mask, and it's really interesting. Like she has a dark vibe to her with this mask that nobody else has masks on. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and we get a glimpse of Tommy there, which in the VO she is saying that's the only time she's seen him since.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have the kind of climax of this whole thing, which is the Rocky here, the Red Ranger, finally confronts the person he's been hunting the whole time, Tommy the Green Ranger.
Yeah.
And we have this epic fight scene, which, again, I don't want to talk about too much because we've already referenced how cool and high level the production quality is. But if you take a look at just how the swords are used and choreographed here, and similarly how Rocky uses his bionic leg to his advantage, it's just very cool stuff.
No, it's absolutely wonderful. And I love the fact that they worked a sword fight into Power Rangers. I mean, Power Rangers is always well known as, the Green Ranger, the Red Ranger, they had swords. There were lots of swords throughout all the different versions of Power Rangers, and it's really nice they were able to, put a sword fight in this film. It's really great.
Right. One of the things that I wanted to point out is, in addition to this awesome action fight scene happening, we have a really kind of cool character moment that sets up the sort of big reveal from a plot perspective. This is something you just don't really see in big-time action Hollywood films, was that contextualization. Is this shot right here where it's revealed to us that who we thought was the Pink Ranger, Katee Sackhoff's character, is actually not, and that she's been dead this whole time. And not only that, but it's remembered very, very vividly by Tommy the Green Ranger here. And you can see in this shot, it's just beautiful from a composition standpoint. It's a great wide. Again, talking about what separates amateur from professional, it's really making beautiful use of your wide shots. And this is just a prime example of that. And we're seeing also in this shot Tommy's helmet for the first time.
Yeah, and we see the really cool new helmet design, which if you took out the kind of gray mouthpiece, would really, really scream like Judge Dredd.
Right, which again is something that Adi Shankar produced.
Yeah, which is super cool. And then just overall, the whole framing is really reminiscent of the kind of quintessential hero in mourning scene that you see. Crisis on Infinite Earths with Superman holding Supergirl, Death in the Family with Batman holding Robin. Like that kind of, this is how, a superhero mourns with the passing of a loved one.
Very cool stuff. And then obviously the very big reveal is set up from that stuff that we just talked about.
Yeah,
and
the biggest reveal is just right here. We're about to see, we see the crack in the face, and we see this kind of Sixth Sense moment where we go back and we see that the Pink Ranger, or the person we think is the Pink Ranger, is actually who's been responsible for the deaths of all these people that the Power Rangers love. Billy, Zach, Bulk, and Skrull. And the great reveals we're going to get right here. Oh, don't want to spoil it, but bam! Rita Repulsa, our Pink Ranger, was actually the original Power Rangers villain the entire time.
Which kind of came out of nowhere for me. I mean, I did not see that coming. I don't know about you.
No, I mean, she's definitely referenced. They talk about how Tommy was created, and they kind of go over Tommy's plot at one point, but it never occurred to me that they would just do exploding into a whole new character shot right towards the end of the film.
Right. For many people, this is the part that kind of took them out because of just the execution of the sort of CGI as a replacement thing. It's not quite as high quality, but for how fast these guys did it and for how little money, it's not a bad effect.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty good effect. It's kind of a melting ash kind of thing. We have the shell of the Pink Ranger blow away to reveal our Rita Repulsa.
That is the Power Rangers short film. Frank, thank you very much for joining me and telling us all about this cool stuff.
Thank you for having me. Always glad to talk Power Rangers.
For everything else Power Rangers and cool fan films on the internet, you're already in the right place. IGN.